11 Haunted Places in Washington. Washington is one of the most beautiful states in North America thanks to an abundance of natural lakes, lush forests, and historical landmarks. However, lurking behind that beauty is a much darker side involving some particularly creepy paranormal hotspots. Let's look a little bit closer at these 11 most haunted places in Washington state. Campbell House, Spokane. Campbell House is one of Washington's most well-known historical landmarks. It was designed and built by Kirtland K. Cutter in 1898 and was first owned by Amasa Basal Campbell. There is an unfortunate history attached to the house. In the early 1900s, 3 Campbell children were murdered by a burglar who kidnapped the 4th child. The child was never seen again. With such a tragic past, it is hardly surprising that the Campbell House is one of the most haunted houses in the state of Washington. Visitors describe a very unsettling feeling on entering the house and are often overcome with dread. There is a portrait of Amasa Basal Campbell in the house that is said to follow visitors with its eyes as they wander the house, perhaps looking to see if the kidnapper ever returns. Black Diamond Cemetery. The very fact that Black Diamond Cemetery is a burial ground makes it a little creepy, but when you add the fact that this is actually one of the most haunted locations in Washington, it really kicks the spook factor up a few notches. It has been said that visitors have heard whistling and voices when nobody else is around. There have also been reports of the swinging lanterns of dead coal miners seen on foggy nights. Regardless of what you believe, Black Diamond Cemetery is not a place you want to be after dark. University Heights, Seattle. University Heights in Seattle was at one time a school, but it has since been converted into a community center. It is also considered to be one of the most haunted buildings in Washington thanks to the spirit of a little boy who haunts the building. The youngster is believed to have been a student at University Heights when it was still operating as a school, and it seems like she has never left. He is often seen and heard playing in the halls. However, he certainly does not seem to be alone in the building since many visitors, staff, and paranormal investigators have all said that they have heard what sounds like a small group of children laughing and playing in the building. At least the little boy doesn't seem to be lonely. Tacoma Old City Hall, Tacoma. Tacoma's Old City Hall has been at the center of various reports of hauntings since the mid-70s. According to local town records, the police were called to the old building on a number of occasions starting in 1974 to investigate a variety of different disturbances, including lights going on and off, noises coming from inside, fire alarms sounding, and even the intruder alarms being triggered. Those reporting the disturbances believed that someone was breaking in, but on each occasion, the police could find no evidence that anyone had even been inside. There were no signs of forced entry, nothing had been disturbed, and there was no logical explanation for the disturbances. Fort Vancouver National Historic Site, Vancouver. Fort Vancouver dates back to the 19th century, but before that, it served as a fur trading outpost. It stands on the Columbia River and is located partly in Washington and partly in Oregon. Like so many other old and ruined buildings, Fort Vancouver has its fair share of secrets hidden within its walls. One of the most active buildings is said to be the Grant House Art Center, which sits among the houses in Officers Row. Some of the strange phenomena that have been reported there include phones ringing when they are completely unplugged and doors opening or closing by themselves. There is one particular ghost, who members of staff have nicknamed Sully, that likes to sit in the cafe drinking coffee. Mount Baker Theater, Bellingham. Mount Baker Theater opened in Bellingham in 1927, and ever since it first opened its doors, the building seems to have been plagued by ghosts. Just some of the reports that have been recorded here include unexplained noises, cold spots, strange disembodied voices, balls of light, and even the odd apparition. There is a resident ghost of a young woman named Judy, and for years the theater has had reports of her developing crushes on male projectionists and ushers. When she picks a crush, they'll hear their names called across the stage, or they'll feel ghostly touches on their backs and shoulders. And she's just one of 4 ghosts that paranormal investigators have discovered there. With all of this strange paranormal activity going on, it is not difficult to see why Mount Baker Theater is considered to be one of the most haunted places in Washington state. Oxford Saloon, Snohomish. The Oxford Saloon in Snohomish is considered to be one of the most haunted places in Washington state. It has been investigated by a number of different paranormal investigators, and many of them have picked up some very clear examples of electronic voice phenomena. The saloon was built in 1900 but has been modified considerably over the years. It has seen more than its fair share of violence over the years, especially down in the basement and in the men's card room. One of the most documented murders here is the death of a policeman named Henry, who was a regular at the saloon and who may even have worked as a bouncer on his days off. He is believed to be one of the many spirits haunting the Oxford Saloon today. He most often appears on the basement stairs, but is also known to pinch women in the ladies' restroom. On the upper floors, there are said to be 3 more ghosts, a man in a bowler hat and 2 female spirits. One of these ladies is a madam known as Kathleen, and she is described as an older woman dressed in purple with matching purple bows. The other lady is a girl named Amelia who was forced into prostitution by Kathleen and who was found dead in a closet on the property. Kells Irish Pub, Seattle. Once known as the Butterworth Building, this former mortuary is now a very popular bar called Kells Irish Pub. It is not only one of the most haunted locations in Washington state but is considered to be the most haunted pub in North America and has even been the focus of a couple of different paranormal television shows. A large number of bodies have passed through the mortuary thanks to disease epidemics, mining accidents, and violent crime, and that has certainly left its mark on the property. Just some of the unexplained activity that has been documented here include mirrors spontaneously shattering for no apparent reason, plaster falling from the walls, glasses being swiped off of surfaces by unseen hands, and disembodied voices. The owner also claims to have seen an apparition sitting at the end of the bar, which he described as a mixed-race man with very thin hands and wearing a suit jacket. Interestingly, some of the bodies that passed through the mortuary here would have been the victims of our next haunted location, Starvation Heights Sanitarium. Starvation Heights Sanitarium, Ohio. Starvation Heights Sanitarium was operated by Dr. Linda Hazard and her husband Sam, but the doctor was using a very strange treatment method to treat her patients, starvation. Needless to say, this was not an effective treatment, and a large number of her patients died. These bodies were incinerated within the sanitarium to cover up the mistreatment while Dr. Hazard maintained her public image as a strong female leader. However, behind the scenes, she was evil and greedy. Today, the foundation of the building and the incinerator are all that really remains. Well, apart from the spirits of former patients that are said to be roaming the ruins, that is, Northern State Mental Hospital, SEDRO-WOOLLEY. At one time, as many as 2,000 patients lived in the Northern State Mental Hospital. A large percentage of those patients would also have died in the building due to a variety of different causes. Some would have passed from natural causes, but far more died as a direct result of strenuous physical labor, electroshock therapy treatments gone too far, botched lobotomies, complications during forced sterilization, and some were just straight out murdered. It is no great surprise that with so much death and despair linked to the property, it has become one of the most haunted places in the state. There have been various reports of paranormal activity, including one of the most common sightings, an apparition of a nurse pushing a male patient in a wheelchair. Other common reports include shadow figures, disembodied screams, and cold spots. Historic Everett Theater, Everett. Located in the historic mill town of Everett, just 25 miles north of Seattle, lies the historic Everett Theater. Opening in 1901 and then known as the Everett Opera House, it played host to many of the biggest names in early 20th century entertainment, such as the Marx Brothers, Fatty Arbuckle, and George Cohan. With over 120 years of history, it wasn't until 1993, during renovations, that supernatural reports started to really ramp up. While the work was going on, people would often experience the feeling of being watched, and doors would mysteriously not shut. In one instance, a member of staff was on his way out of the projection room when the door just wouldn't close. The more force he used, the more resistance there was. Then suddenly the door burst open, hitting him in the chest and knocking him to the floor. Whoever haunts here certainly seems to like the projection room, as on another occasion an employee witnessed a sweater lift off the floor and float before being thrown back down. In another instance, an employee was working on the film projector when he suddenly felt like he was being watched. Looking up, he saw what he described as a man from his waist up looking at him through the projection window, disappearing moments later.